Here we are in a beautiful snowstorm. And I want to talk about how this is the basis for Christian neuroticism. Lord, cleanse me of my sins. Make me whiter than snow. All these are concepts in the Christian lexicon that drive guilt into the depth and core of what a Christian is, and probably what some other religions are, such as Islam. And we're going to talk about the concept of snow and cleanliness, this idea that humans are somehow dirty from the very beginning of their birth. So I talk about in my book, The God Virus, how the guilt cycle works. But what does it do to a person psychologically and emotionally to be told they're dirty from the time they're born? That they've got this sin on them from the time they're born. It's got to create incredible amounts of anxiety because you're trying to please someone else, some imaginary God that's always looking over your shoulder. You're trying to follow rules that are impossible to follow. I mean, Jesus talks about even an unclean thought is a sin. Lusting in my heart, as Jimmy Carter talked about in one of his interviews years ago. How do you avoid the guilt that comes from that? And the simple answer is, you can't. So what's the purpose of these constant messages of uncleanliness? The purpose is to give you a deeply embedded idea that you are never good enough, and only a God can cleanse you. In other words, you can't get rid of your guilt without your God. But ironically, the guilt does not go away, because the next time you sin, it's all back again. The guilt cycle keeps you tied to the God. Each time you get it cleansed, it comes back. And it's a little harder. Every time you create another sin, every time you think a bad thought, every time you do something that's, quote, bad against this God of yours, then the guilt comes back. And then you have to go get it cleansed. Every time it gets harder and harder to get cleansed. This message leads to neuroticism in many people. I call it Christian neuroticism. You know, without guilt, most Western religions would disappear. All of Christianity is based upon the concept of uncleanliness and guilt. Indeed, if you look at the dichotomy between conservative Christianity and liberal Christianity, the dividing line is guilt. Without guilt, you can't be a good Baptist or a Catholic. It's impossible. Because the message is so strong within those groups. If you're less guilty about your religion, you're obviously liberal. And liberal religions haven't done so well in recent years. They're losing influence, they're losing membership. To some degree, the liberal religions have recognized the manipulation of the guilt cycle, and they've reduced its influence. Unfortunately for them, the guilt cycle is what ties people strongly to the religion. It's what keeps them coming back. They need to be cleansed. How can you get cleansed if you don't feel to begin with? So the liberal religions, generally speaking, have lost, while the more conservative religions, or aspects of the religions, have gained. So what is Christianity if it's not a constant search for remission of sins and freedom from guilt and uncleanliness? It's nothing. And that's the big complaint of the conservatives, is that the liberals aren't truly Christian. Well, no, they're not. Because they haven't taken that clear message that Paul had, that Jesus had, that all the apostles write about in the New Testament, and that the Old Testament is full of. They don't keep that clear message of guilt. Guilt from birth. So to tie this together with our snow and cleanliness theme, do you know any Christian that feels like they are whiter than snow? They're clean. Yeah, they'll tell you they do. But watch the behavior. Watch the way they respond. Watch how they talk about sin. And watch how they respond to other people who are, quote, sinning within their frame of what sin means. There are no Christians that I come across that have this feeling of whiter than snow. It's impossible for them to achieve.